Very good morning to all, ladies and gentlemen, respected my great students. You have to go further. What are all the policies, documentary, ethical myths, which are part and the any secured information as well as the safety information, and moreover for the information security, how you would like to be maintained and manageable. I hope you are seeing the slides now, sir, all of you.
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, fine. Today will discuss further what are all the planning procedures are there, planning steps which are there once you manage for a security, and that those are all the what are the certain steps you have to be consider, how you can easily manage various cases of the security aspect from the beginning, like personal security, system security, network security, operational security, procedural security. How you can go for stepping and what are the procedures are involving, you can go one to another. I just take one of the thing, any type of a process and the procedure and the task or the event which are going to be end, always you have to be look forward further how the start at the beginning of that one. One of the great Stephen Covey given a very clear picture about what are the habits, some of the important habits which are to be maintained for our day-to-day life. Same as it is, if you look at for a task, if you look at for an event, if you look at for a secured flow of an information which are very, very essential for our life, beginning with the end in mind. That means to say, even though where you are going to be target, say these are all going to be the end. End is always say you have to be start of that one and make sure which are very, very essential, and you have to recap and grab most of the information which are very, very essentially required for how to maintain is where exactly some sort of a loop so happening and how you can easily manageable, and those are the things comes under respected and respective procedures which are for planning of security. I'll go one by one what are all the objectives you are going to be learned from this planning of security. Once you complete a complete level of all the contents of this planning of security, which will give a very clear picture about, explain what contingency is basically called likelihood do, which are very, very emergency, essentially go for planning is, and how incident response planning go, how this particular event is going to be incidentally happening go, what are all the reply comes from the certain procedures before pre-plan. Disaster recovery planning, if some sort of a dangerous happening which are unknown to the user, unknown to the complete entrepreneurship who are all working in the organization, no, how we can recovery, how we can easily manageable that level of a planning go. And business continuity, that means to say you have to be any even business in the sense in an education system, how the evaluation process, so in a industry, how the fabrication system. Similarly, if you take in the form of a financial, how which are going to be manageable without any crisis, so which are going to be continuity ups and downs. So even though you have to be see overall working, there should not be any effect to the publics and the private. Plans are related to the contingency planning. You can say how the likelihood, how the emergency, how the certain procedure planning, you can easily understand from this talk. What is meant by continuity strategies? Incident response plan. See the level of plans which are going to be appear, which are going to be considered as part, you can say incident response plan. And if any dangerous aspects which are very, very indeed making a complete insecurity the whole system, we can say disaster recovery plans. That's why IRP is basically the incident response plan. So similarly dangerous which are going to be maintained and which are going to be managed the whole system, whole organization in an insecure manner, recovery plan. So and similarly business continuity plans. We can say three important incident response plan, disaster recovery plans, so and the business continuity plans with respect to what sort of an application we are going to be considered a security. That's why you have to remember always IRPs and DRPs and the BCP. See what are all the main preliminary key roles of these security plans. If you say consider as for the IRPs and the disaster, are there any dangerous, are there any risky recovery plans, and similarly any sort of a evaluation process continuity plans. So what are all the primary functions of the respective these IRPs, DRPs and the BCPs plans? Especially incident response plan IRP focus on immediate response. See, I would like to say we have a network connectivity in a global communication system. No? We have some problem with the switches, so we have problem with the router. Then how which are going to be reply back immediate response. If attack escalates or in a disastrous and process changes to disaster recovery and BCP. That means to say, if something goes wrong, we are not in a position to recover, you are not in a position to maintainable, you are not in a position to recoverable long time, then which are automatically affect to the whole BCP. That means to say business continuity plans are the procedure. Same way, especially for the disaster recovery plans, typically focus on restoring systems after where exactly, which location, dangerous events, dangerous functionalities, so, and overall the intruder attack, overall the hacking status on the particular device. And these are all the occurrence you can find out closely associated with that means to say one to one another there should be a good relationship. If the response of a plans which are going to be deviate from the disaster recovery plan, then automatically the business continuity plans is going to be effective, which are not going to be further improved at all. That is the meaning of DRP. Disaster recovery plans typically focus on restoring system after any sort of a dangerous events happen in a whole system. As it that means to say that relation is automatically mapping and matching to the business continuity plans associated with BCP. And business continuity plan occurs concurrently. Chances are there because which are going to be simultaneously happening with a disaster recovery plan when damage is major or long term. See, in order to, we can classify such a way that long term, medium term, low level term, based on in which way what sort of a disaster requiring more than simple discussion and also the information and information very soon. You have to identify, recognize, follow what are all the type of a disaster recovery planning, how which are going to be major key role for a long term or a low level. Some of the just timeline which shows very clearly one among IRP, then followed by DRP and the BCP. What it means to say is there should be an incident detection, then there should be a reaction, and there should be followed by one to another. The level of detection procedures which ultimately give some sort of output, that output acts like input for the incident reaction. See, whatever the procedure and the pre-planning setup which are there in case of an incident reaction, and ultimately the output of that one is acts like an input for the incident recovery, which highly incident resolved, operation restored by the end of the recovery plan. What it means to say is it will give incident response plan by the end of the IRP. If something goes wrong, their classification, the disaster management, which are going to be with the detection, reaction, and the recovery process. Similarly, disaster recovery planning. They are certain because it will say some sort of a leakage, some sort of a duplication, some sort of a malfunction which are going to be happen will detect itself only. The reaction directly goes to the disaster. Whatever the standard characteristic or the measuring metrics which are going to be used, finally processed, and the corresponding output of the disaster reaction once again acts like a recovery for the disaster recovery input, which goes to be restored, finding out what are all the operations at a primary site. You can say if any sort of a primary sites which are available, how which are going to be focused and rely on disaster recovery planning, incident recovery response planning, and business continuity planning. Same as it is, which are in a single flow. The dotted indicates once again the chances of incident of a detection, no? The chances of a disaster detection reaction, no? Which are going to be leak or which are going to be malfunction, which are going to be attacked some way, correct, no? Then a continuity reaction. And these are all the continuity reaction, the process with the help of various type of procedures, so certain process, so then the corresponding output of that one is act like alternative site operations. That indicates that one primary operations restored by the end of disaster recovery planning as well as business continuity planning. Keep in mind, these are all the, if you see on the vertically, how the incident response planning go, similarly disaster recovery planning go, business continuity planning, and the x-axis what you are observing like a different levels of the attacks. You have to be analyze what sort of attacks which are going to be happen, attacks occur, may proactive, reactive, various other. We'll study all those things. What are all the different type of an attacks, adaptive. Similarly, post-attack within a short span of a time. Just here we mentioned like hours in terms of minutes also, in terms of seconds also. Then post-attack in the form of a days. And this complete pictorial representation, what it means to say is provide a clear understanding how the contingent, that means a likelihood or emergency planning of timeline having involving three different type of a planning setup. One among incident response planning having their own level of detection or reaction recovery, then followed by disaster recovery planning have their own reaction and the corresponding disaster recovery. Similarly, finally, where exactly the continuity process, we can say in the case of a business application, in the case of university level or institution level, in the case of any entrepreneurship level, how the business continuity planning which are going to be approachable. This complete pictorial representation clearly give the plan of action for contingency. And continuity strategies further before planning can actually begin. A team has to plan the effort and prepare resulting documentation. We say that one. If something goes wrong, how best way you can easily filter. What are all the procedures which are there? Who are all the members are there? Who are all the committee? Who are all the team members? Like that. Before planning can actually, you have to be started with a group members or like a discuss a corresponding plan of action which are going to be effortless and prepare a resulting better documentary. First one of champion, high level manager to support. Who are all the person say I am able to have systems administrator or network administrator who is a supervisor who CEO who all comes to the category promote and endorse findings of the projects. They used to say these are all the information you have to go do a corresponding framework. How the we can call it as a class called a champion. Project manager leads project and make sure sound project planning process use and try to complete, and it should be useful to the public and whoever it may be, correct, no, society develop, and also project resources are prudently managed, which are going, suppose something goes wrong due to the various other reasons, no proper level of an input going to be considered, no proper level of an implementation, no proper level facing of planning, designing, similarly maintenance, so testing process, correct? No, these are all how we can easily manage. You can say overall the user level, overall the considerable project manager a part of this one. Similarly, team member, who are all the user comes under doing a project should be a manager, their representatives. They used to say, he is my representative, he is my representative to do the various type of tasks which are assigned for coding go, assigned for how the insecurity managing disaster planning go from various communities of interest. That means to say you have to take a group discussion, you have to take a social level, overall involving and make a community basis, then you take an interest of various communities and especially information technology and information security. These are all a continuity strategies. You give a understand a certain major steps in a contingency planning. Contingency is a likelihood, is an emergency in a security. What are all the steps are involving? If you go one of the other, business impact analysis. Business impact analysis is a pre-processing, is a pre-planned level of a step involving how the contingency planning procedure going to be take place. Similarly, incident response planning already come across like IRP. Similarly, disaster recovery planning, business continuity planning, involving all the things, certain steps. If you take into consideration business impact analysis, having a certain internally number of steps are involved. One, the identification of a threats and attack. You have to say what sort of a threats going to be happen. Is it like a attacking in a proactive manner, reactive manner? You have to classify threats happening to the hardware devices, so threat happening to the employees, so threats happening to the system, like that. We can make identify business unit analysis. So scenario, how the arena of successful attacks. That means to say intentionally they are going to be attacked. Is it going to be successful? What are all the scenarios are there? What are all the various type of arena of this particular successful attack? Assessment of a potential damage. That means to say, if so damage happening after attacking, how we are going to be assessed, how we are going to be audit, how we are going to be admit. You can say assessment of potential damage. Then finally, business impact analysis consists of another like a classification, subordinate plans which are involving how best way which are going to be part and partial of the level of the various process, especially the incident response planning which goes to be avoid take the inputs of most of the information which comes from the business impact analysis BIA, then followed by incident planning planning from the measuring various levels of the metrics. So there should be incident detection, then followed by incident reaction. So there should be another way of incident recovery. Then these corresponding outputs, whatever the inputs which are going to be taken from the BIA, after processing with a planning, detection, reaction and recovery, the output of that one is actually like input for DRP. We can say disaster recovery planning. Plan for disaster recovery and what are all the crises, so what are all the various type of changes, so what way we can able to recover is possible, how we are going to be manage various type of resources, crisis happen. So and what are all the procedure, the tasks which are went on executed one to another recovery operations. So and these are each and every internal phases and internal steps have their own operations. So have they make use certain parameters, we can say metrics value representation, and after processing we can come to know corresponding output of that one is act like input for the business continuity planning, which establish very clearly a continuity strategies, how the procedure which are going to be involved, plan for continuity of operations, still further you have to be enhanced for improvement. If something goes wrong, likelihood, if something goes wrong, generally the emergency operations, so how best way you are going to be continue this operation for a business continuity planning. And finally, continuity management. These complete a pictorial representation is a frame diagram give a certain steps. We can say primary steps are major steps in contingency planning, beginning from BIA. business impact analysis. So the corresponding output acts like input for the IRP, incident response planning. Once again, the corresponding output acts like input for the DRP, disaster recovery planning. And finally, the corresponding output of the disaster recovery planning acts like input for the BCP, business continuity planning. You have to be remember our four important steps which are there in case of contingency planning. I will go one by one. Business impact analysis, BIA. Investigation and the assessment. You have to evaluate of the impact that various attacks can have on the organization. How certainly which went on attacks happen to the system, how attacks happen to the user, how the attacks happen to the software what we are using. Is it possible to investigate and make a evaluation and the corresponding impact effect that various attacks in the organization? We can go with a certain assumption, security controls which are there. Security controls which are there always have been bypassed, have failed, or have been proven ineffective. Attacks have succeeded. That means to say, you have to be imagine a negative or the remarkable manner, such a way that which are going to become in a different, indirectly, and not in a position to successful. We can say failure happen. How which are going to be proven to be ineffective, how which are going to be unsucceeded attack. These are all with a certain assumption. Business impact analysis going to be having a certain stages, threat attack identification and the priority. You have to take priority basis, and the business unit analysis, evaluation unit analysis, attack success scenario, arena, various type of a development process, potential damage assessment to subordinate plan classification. These are all various certain stages of business impact analysis. And similarly, in case of IRP, incident response planning, having own identification, how we can go for classification, how the response to an incident happening. Similarly, attack classified based on the incident if they are direct against information assets. If some sort of a property of the system, property of a software, property of the user, property of the entrepreneurship, is it directly which went on attacking the particular system of information? And you have to be think about, we should be realistic chances of success. You have a direct level of information attacking to the property or the asset, whatever it may be, you can say a realistic chance of a success. Could threaten confidentiality. That means to say you take a traits of CIA which are immediately steal the flow of an information of an identity of the user and the duplication of the user and how the copy right flow of an information could threaten any sort of leakage of confidentiality. Then integrity, there should be correct, no, maintaining such a way that this is a part and parcel of the system of center. Similarly, organization, how which are going to be lose the integrity, and how the look authentication, availability of information resources. Is it my guarantee of the flow of an information? None of the others personality. That means to say these three important traits, you can say CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of information resources, chances of threatening how which are going to be effect in case of IRP, incident response planning. And incident response is more reactive than proactive. That means to say it provide effective result, effective output than a proactive, which are not indirectly way of flow. With the exception of planning that must occur to prepare incident response team to be ready to react to an incident. See, suppose you are making a group of X or Y, Z, whatever, each and every group or a community or the team, you have given a responsibility. But how which are going to be reactive, how which are going to be responsible for If something goes wrong in one person, X1 in X group, or similarly Y1 in Y group, or Z3 in Z, correct, no? Which are very, very alert incident procedure involved. Similarly, incident planning. First step in overall process of incident response is a certain step of procedures, we can say planning. Predefine the responses enable organization to react within a short span of a time. They quickly and effectively to detect what sort of an incident happened. If and only if organization of incident response team, you say that these are the team already recognized, these are the teams already identified, these are all the team going for doing a planning of action IRT. Similarly, organizations can detect a chances directly. Other than the team also, organization also look for identifying incident planning. Consists of individuals needed to handle systems as incident take place. If something goes wrong, in order to maintain a security, planner should develop a guidelines for reacting to the recovering from incident. That means to say overall the team of a planner, overall the team of a designer, overall the team of maintainer should develop, have their own certain procedure guideline, how you have to be proceed for reacting some sort of a recovering from incident. These are certain steps. Similarly, detection. Most common occurrence is complaint about technology support, often delivered to help desk. See what will happen, you are using n number of a social network usage, correct now. Even though our device, a tiny device, not in a position to respond most of the time, correct now. It will tell compatibility less so, and is not compatible to this particular OS so Android application so, correct. How you are going to be any sort of these remarks or complaint about technology often delivered to help desk. That means to say you have to go to Google or you have to go to Amazon, you have to go to the Alta Vista search engine. Is it possible to find bypass the flow of an information? You have to be identified. Careful training needed to quickly identify and classify an incident. That means to say you have to be very, very safety, security, measuring for awareness to basically record for how within a short span of a time you are going to be identify and classify an incident. Once attack is properly identified, can respond. Suppose these are the proactive and the reactive attacks have been taken place on the system have taken place directly to the switch to directly to the network, directly to the user who are on there, then organization can come in between and respond for these things. The reaction consists of action that guide in which way. You might have seen the complete internal steps which are there, how the business is correct no activity. Same as it is here, we are planning and explaining. Consists of action that guide an organization to stop incident. That means to say, need not to go reduce, you have to go terminate, and you have to stop incident, mitigate and impact of incident, and provide what are all the impact which are going to be happening to the organization, and provide information for recovery from incident. And reacting to an incident, there are actions that must occur quickly. You have to give a certain notification. You say order after order, then you have to give a certain notification to the keeper, who are all the person involving managing certain planning of the incident. Then you have to give a notification to the key personnel and documentation of incident. See, you are not followed the guidelines according to the plan of action, then you have to give an explanation for that. That's a notification you have to give to the personnel. Incident containment. This is very, very important strategies. Before incident can be contained, areas affected must be determined. That means to say any sort of insecurity of an incident, intruder and similarly risk happening, then you have to identify which are all the area affecting and how which are going to be social effect. All the things you have to be observed. Organization can stop incident and attempt to recover control through a number of strategies. See, we can go with a sequential order, certain number of steps which are involving how best way can identify a number of strategies or numbers and we can go one of the other strategies which are going to be available to us. Incident recovery, once incident has been contained and control of systems resign, the next stage is a recovery. That means to say, if happening recovery of the incident, having a certain steps endorsed with various type of an incident happen and how the controlling system which are going to be resign the state of procedure. First task is to identify a manpower, we can say human resources needed, and launch them into action. See, suppose something goes wrong in a plant, something goes wrong in a system of whole security. Then you have to identify who are all the explorer, who are all the experienced person, who are all good in this particular testing or maintaining. That's why a manpower, human resources needed and launch them into action. You take into consideration, you do this one precautionary measure, how best way you are going to be recovered. Full extent of the damage must be assessed. That means to say, you can extend further if any damage which are going to be not in a position to recover at all, is it possible to assess? Organization repair vulnerabilities. Some of the correct no the chances of not in a position to repairable addresses any shortcuts which comes and safeguards and restores data and services of the system. That means to say main intention of that one is how we are going to be maintain the level of exchange of data is going to be full safety and the security measure. That's why if something goes wrong in an organization, is it possible to replace various type of incidents, risks, intruders, vulnerabilities, and chances of attacks, and the hackers. These are all the things are, is it possible to repair? Addresses any shortcomings in safeguards. You can find out such a way that with the help of an indirect way procedure. So you have to be make before getting to the system insecurity. Is it possible to switch over from the state of any shortcut methods? You can say safeguards and restore data and services of the system. A damage assessment. How we can make a damage assessment in the system of the flow. Several resources or several sources of information on damaging, including system logs, so intrusion detection log. See, if you ourselves say you are going to deliver online, there should be a certain procedure. There should be easily. If somebody asks for us, is it we have conducted class? Correct? No, you can maintain, see the log. At what time you logged in, what sort of a task executed, at what time, and correct? No, these are a complete file having a logs, you can say, including system logs initiated, beginning from the welcome, and later what are the independent tasks are executable, which are going to be manageable in system log. Intrusion decision, same as it is, something goes wrong with the vulnerabilities, something goes wrong for this risk management too, something goes wrong for the ethical legal detection logs. There should be some sort of a file which are going to be managed. Configuration logs, say that one, you have to be configured this particular system as a firewall. You have to configure this system as a VPN, virtual private network. There should not be any problem of security, insecurity, and document. Certainly, there should be a documentary evidence, both soft and the hard copy. Documentation from incident response is a IR and the results of detailed assessment of systems and data storage. See, beginning from the incident response, then followed by the assessment of analysis of the systems, and finally data storage. Wherever it may be, we need several sources of information which are very, very easily, essentially go for evaluation, say assessment. The evidence of a man-made mission computer must be carefully collected. See, today, if you are observing how the hacking happened immediately, they used to collect the system, particular system, then they used to be go with like a, how they used to be certain steps follow for if cybercrime happening. Similarly, if any sort of attacks happening to the particular website in the sense the system, a server documented and maintained to be acceptable in formal or informal proceedings. You have to go with such a procedures are, oh, is it possible to find out through a login? No. And is it possible to find out a log table accessibility? Is it possible to find out at what time system hanged? At what time system is not in a position to reply response? Correct? Now, these are all the evidence you can easily identify from the system of computer. Individuals who assess damage need special time. That means to say, if you would like to be a thorough knowledge of managing a resources, managing the system, then how this particular damage happen, but especially person should be a very good knowledge inside personality of network security, information security, system administrator, similarly network administrator. Automated response. New systems can respond to incident threat autonomously in independent level. If we are going to be considered a new idea of an hardcore or hardware system, respond to incident threat autonomously. It will say, even though which are not in a position to adjust to the compatibility, then independently it will give an incident which are going to be threat autonomously independent to one another. Downsides of a current automated response system may overweight benefits. You have to be say how the benefits are the automated and the advantage and the merits of that one, which are going to be more and above, over and above. And similarly, induces into committing a crime to get a convince. You have to convince. And the legal and ethical while enter, how is it possibly they're following certain steps are the policy matter. They following according to the ethical and the legal opinion from the company. These are all the procedures involving automated response. DRP, what we have come across the second and the third phase is planning the preparation for and recovery from a disaster. It will say how we best way which are possible to recover most of the incidents from a disaster. And if any likely would do any sort of like a emergency planning team must decide which actions constitute a disaster and which constitute incident. You have to be distinguished such a way that how the incidents happen, how the disaster happens. So, and you have to make a team one. The team has to give a proper reply and proper response. When situation classified as a disaster's vulnerabilities, plans change how to respond, how the reply and the procedure which are involving to take action to secure most valuable assets. These are the properties of the entrepreneurship, properties of the organization. Very valuable, correct? No? To preserve value for the longer term. See, we purchase a good system like a supercomputer. Something goes wrong, but you have to be give a very justification, value level justification, how long this is going to be recovered, how long is going to be used at later stage. Correct? No, in terms of crore, in terms of a loss together, you paying to the system. If something goes wrong, then you are not in a position to usable. Then how long that one? Terms and conditions which are going to be affected. That's why when the situation classified as vulnerability disasters, plans change how to respond and how the action which are going to be take into consideration most value of the security. Business continuity planning, last one, outlines re-establishment of critical business operation during a disaster that impacts operation. Suppose we take, I'm just underline the business like a examination continuity planning, re-establish what are all the valuation process which are going to be operation going to be take place during some damage. Correct? No person is not in a position to write the examination. Person is not able to understand the question. These various the procedures which are in impact certain operations. If a disaster has rendered the business unusable for continued operation, there must be plan to allow business to continue functioning. Even though if any sort of unusable for continued operation with respect to the disaster and the rendering of business, then you have to plan to allow without any sort of a problems, without any sort of intermediate disaster, planning to continue functionality of the business. It has to continue without any proper damaging of a disaster, so damaging of the vulnerable, damaging of various type of assets which are going to be used in a system of information. Development of BCP, especially development of BCP, business continuity planning, is somewhat simpler than incident response planning or disaster recovery planning. Consists of primarily selecting various type of procedures which are involving how we can go forward. Continuity strategies, there are certain number of strategies planning for managing the continuity of a business, determining a factor in selecting between various number of options or say parameter which are going to be a cost effective usually. In general, there are three exclusive options are there: hot sites, warm sites, and cold sites. That means to say which are useful, which are not useful, which are going to be make much more danger intruder, which are going to be provide a virus attack, which are going to be correct. No, you have to make a classification on three exclusive options. One is hot, another one is warm, another one is a cold site. Three shared functions: time sharing, service bureaus, and mutual agreement. There should be a chances of how the sharing option which are going to be take place once you are using any sort of an event and the activity which are going to be through social network today, like a time sharing service bureaus meant for exclusively service oriented, and there should be understanding between both the side of the user, both source as well as the destination. We can say mutual agreement. And time sharing to all, we can say another way like a broadcasting, understanding between unicast to unicast, similarly broadcast to multi, you can say broadcast, multicast, unicast. The combination how the time sharing is going to be take place for all users. Offsite disaster data storage. In order to get the sites which are going to be up, coming up, which are going to be launched, which are going to be browsable, running quickly, an organizer must have ability to port data into a new site systems. These some changes are going to, there should be a mirroring, there should be image mirroring of that particular data. Then you have to go for launch in a new system. Option for getting operations both top and executing, which includes electronic, remote journaling, and a database shadowing. You can say how the valuation of various type of a process or execution involving data exchange locally and remotely. You can manage what sort of a database you are going to be. Crisis management. Action taken during the after disaster that focus on people involved and address viability of business. That means to say which are going to be manageable with a chances of crisis. Responsible for managing various type of events or the actions which are going to be in an enterprise and which covers easily supporting an independent or individual user and moreover family of industry is a how the changes during crisis, keeping the public information, and similarly how the communicating and the interaction which are going to be with a major customers who are all intermediate, who are all the supplier, who are all the vendors, who are all the manufacturer. And finally, model for consolidated, if you say likelihood, if you say like a standard level of emergency plan, what are all the consolidated procedures? Single document set approach support concise planning, which are going to be encourage smaller organization to develop, test and use incident response, similarly disaster recovery plans. Model is based on analysis of disaster recovery and the incident response plans and also a number of organization and certain important steps. We can say how the planning document which are involving 6 steps in contingency planning process. One among is identifying mission, identifying resources and support of critical functions. So how we can anticipate potential contingencies or disasters. Similarly, selecting a chance of likelihood planning strategy. So implementing a certain emergency strategy. So and finally testing and revising. These are the contingency plan format which are involving how the major sections which are in incident response, so disaster recovery and the BCP, that means to say IRP and the BRP and the BCP, a major section involving various type of certain steps. Law and enforcement, same as it is what the ethical and the various type of legal opinion, same thing we consider once you go for plan of action. Incident, we handle the level of a teamwork. If something goes violating and the violation of the law, organization may determine what are all the involvement of a law and the enforcement which are necessary, how we can enforce a law enforcement which are involving, how we can find out locally and the state level and the federal level and the overseas level which are going to be exhibit. Benefits, especially various type of a legal opinion with respect to the IR, with respect to the DRP. Similarly, for the business continuity planning, you can say these are all the standard level of procedures. We can say some of the merits. Agency may better equipped processing evidence. So organizations may be less effective in convincing suspects. Suppose chances of suspecting the particular vendor, a team community, overall the retailer, then how best way which are going to be law enforcement to skill obtaining various type of witnessing. Similarly, demerits which involve for enforcement agencies, once a law enforcement agency takes over case, which having a chance of losing various complete controlling level of a chain of various type of activities or the events going to be happen. May not hear about it, may take long time because once the case registered, a law of enforcement agency look forward certain procedure, the witness and the how which are going to be manageable legally. And final summary, a complete likelihood. Similarly, emergency is a contingency planning made up of three important components. These three important components is a IRP, incident happening in a system, how which are going to be recover, disaster recovery planning, and finally business continuity planning. Continuity planning, if you say one among IRP, incident response planning, disaster recovery planning, finally business continuity planning, which are part and parcel of a complete planning of security information. Next class, I'll discuss about security technology, which are going to be understand very clearly how we can set up a firewall and VPNs. Have a good day. If you have any sort of questions, I'll stop here. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions, sir? I hope 1 hour. Any questions? Hello?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll meet next class. Security technology, firewalls and VPN, which is a part of the second unit or the third unit. We'll go one of the other, please. Huh? Next class, probably
Okay, sir.
next week on 31st, before the New Year celebration of few people. 31st, we'll meet. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Wish you happy, all sort of whatever your plan of action for the happy Christmas day. Good luck, all. Best wishes from my side. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Have a good